never not used a cell phone ever.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Good. It's Saturday and figuring out what I'm gonna do today.
Man, so I'm glad you said something about me being a UK fan because a lot of people really, truly, honestly don't know, and the reason being is because, like I told you in text, Louisville was the first Division I college university to give me an opportunity years ago to get into media. So because of that, I don't wear colors. I'll never bash. Because why am I going to bite the hand that feeds me? If you get what I'm saying.
Well, I hear you. Well, people always ask me, they're like, "Are you UK or U of L?" And I'm like, "Really? I was raised in a UK household, then I turned U of L, then I went back, and it's like, really, I want them both to win. So I'm never bashing either one of them, to be honest."
Right, and it's quite honestly puzzling and crazy that people will and people do. They do, and you see it sometimes, and it's actually preposterous. I used to be a Louisville fan myself, so backstory real quick before we get started. The old basketball trainer Jeremy Johnson, back when Marcus Maben and stuff was there, his parents owned a very successful daycare called Johnson's Daycare. And I was a kid there, and every Tuesday night when they was in the Metro Conference with Dwayne Morton, we'd always go to the games. So that's how I became a Louisville fan. But the first time I watched UK by myself in '97 in basketball, I've honestly been hooked ever since.
Nice.
Man, so how'd you get started with your seasoning stuff, man?
Well, I started in 2015. I was a bartender, and I had been bartending for 5 years, and I wanted to get out of that industry. I'm like, I can't do this the rest of my life. This isn't what I want to be doing. I was this entrepreneurial thinker. I always had big ideas, and all my ideas took $1 million. And it wasn't until one day I had this recipe of seasoning, right? My original recipe that I used all the way dating back to college, just putting on bone-in skin on chicken, and I just knew what ingredients to grab. And so anytime I go to a party or get together or whatever, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring this chicken and make for people. And
Yeah.
so all it was the seasoning. So I continued to make this chicken forever and for 15 years and never thought to package it. I was always thinking bigger ideas. And it wasn't until, I was fed up with bartending and I was like, I got my wheels are turning every day. How can I get out of here? How can I get out of here?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I brought in this chicken one day, and there's one guy at the bar. It's 5 o'clock on Monday. There's one person in there. It was way before the place gets busy. And I was like, "You want some of this chicken I brought?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I gave him like half of this chicken, and he took one bite. And I just remember him looking up, being like, "Why aren't you selling this? This is the best chicken I ever had." And I was just like, "Danos." I was like, "That's it." Like, to
Yeah.
me, I was just like, "All right, now I got to work 12 hours because we don't close till 4 in the morning. So now I got to be here all night. And all I want to do is go home and Google and YouTube, how am I going to start a seasoning business?" Because I was like, that's it. Like, my whole, like, all this like dreaming and wondering I've been doing, like, how am I going to get out of here? I'm like, I got $8,000. Like, I got enough money to start a seasoning business. You don't need $1 million
Right.
to start a seasoning business. And the cool thing about it is I got to do what I love. So, I've always loved to cook. My family knew that. They always used to be like, I was always the one in the family because I got a bunch of older brothers and sisters. And I was always the one that, like, everybody was worried about, like, oh, he's bartending. He'll figure it out one day. And people, they'd be like, you should be a chef. You ever thought about going to culinary school? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work Christmas and Thanksgiving and the bad
Right.
hours and, maybe not make a whole bunch of money or whatever. I was like, bartending is good with me. But of course it wore on me and I couldn't wait to get out of there. And then I had the idea. So I spent basically about 2 years figuring out how to put it into a bottle and package it and do all that. And so, I, later in 2017, I had to repackage it because my original packaging, which was looked like that, it said Dan O's, like it didn't have a hyphen in between the N and the O.
Ah.
Some people were seeing it as Don O's or Dano's. So like there was a few small changes I had to make to the original packaging to basically get it close to where what you see today. There was another change in 2021, but I had to make that pivot, and then I got this awesome product, and I knew the product was great. That's the cool thing about Danos. I always tell people
Yeah.
I started the business because of the flavor. I knew it was great. Then like when I, through the first like couple years is when I'm like, this is healthy. This is going to change people's lives. Like, why isn't there seasoning being made like this with better ingredients, better seasoning, like Papa John's? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, why doesn't this product exist? So it became more to me. It's like, all right, everything happens for a reason. I'm out there looking at the stores. I'm like, why aren't there other companies doing this? Like just making quality product for seasoning that goes on your food. And so 2017, when I repackaged it, it's when I hit the flea markets and state fairs and stuff like that. And it was just a grind. It was just me traveling, had this dream of changing the world with the seasoning. And I just traveled around any big flea market, any big event I could find where I could go get in front of 10, 20,000 people. I was doing it. And
Now, at
so,
any point in time, oh, sorry, I thought you were done. My bad. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to get to the why we're sitting here today, I guess. So, 2020 comes along, COVID hits. That's when that was my major pivot. It was like, all right, what am I going to do now? Because I can't go make the money the way I used to. And so it was social media, and I went to TikTok, and I mean, it didn't take long, and I just started to explode on TikTok. The sales were going through the roof. I could sell in a day what I could do in a whole weekend at a flea market, and it was just crazy, man. Like things were just taking off, and so I made the right partnership and partnered with a marketing company. This guy was sitting here, he was losing business because it was that time with COVID, so all the marketing dollars weren't coming in, so he had time to partner with me, and we focused on Dano. So he had took his 16 people that he had, and we just became a family of Danos, and we all marketing, all videos, and just pushing Danos out there. And then we brought in some investment, right partnerships, and now we're nationwide, fastest growing seasoning company in America.
Now, I want to get back before I get to that. I want to get back to you was talking about traveling between 2018 and right before COVID, going to these flea markets. At any point in time when you was doing that, did you have any self doubt? Like, did I really mess up here? Because I know a lot of times, especially being an entrepreneur, you face those mental inquisitions about yourself.
Absolutely. I actually made a post on my personal Facebook today, and it was me sitting there with when I had a shaved head and I was drinking a cup of coffee that said "Never give up ever." And I put a little caption on that this morning, and it's getting tons of views and tons of comments because I posted in my caption on that picture. I said when I took this picture, I'm pretty sure I was in overdraft mode in my bank account, and like seriously, because I was for years. You know, sometimes I'd have $3,000, and then sometimes I was negative. So, because I always had to rob Peter to pay Paul to get my money, I'd have to go do these flea markets to get enough money to pay off my next vendor so I can get more bottles or more caps or more ingredients to make a bigger batch. And but I was always growing a little bit. Like each year I grew a little bit. So it was always, I had to keep grinding and keep doing
Yeah.
that and going through the motions and, you know, pick myself up to drag myself to the next flea market. The hard part was packing everything in the truck and getting there and unpacking and then setting up. And then once it started, I was doing what I loved. I'm sharing my product with the world. So that part was pretty easy to me. It was just long, grueling days, but I really enjoyed doing it. And but yeah, dude, it was a total grind. Uh there's plenty of times I could have given up. I posted, and also when I say I posted that picture today, I also said that, I remember taking that picture because it was in a time where I didn't know if I was going to succeed or not. And I said that I took that picture to inspire myself that maybe one day I'll be able to talk about this picture. You know what I mean? And that just happened to be like a couple hours ago I posted that.
That's pretty awesome, man. Now, when you go through that and you're grinding, and like you said, and then you meet that person, like did you ever find yourself getting with an untrustworthy person in the process, like somebody you thought you could trust, and then you realize over time you're like, well, this shit ain't gonna work out.
Unfortunately, no.
Wow. Okay.
I made a lot of really good decisions.
That's
You
awesome.
know, for the most part, I was by myself. I did everything myself for the first, uh, 5, 6 years. My brother, there was a time when I was trying to get like $10,000 for like 10% of my business. And then I was trying to get $50,000 for 10% of my business. And I was at between my like inner circle, I was asking some friends, a couple family members, and nobody wanted to do it. They all regret it now. But you know, had that happened, maybe that could have been an issue where that could have happened. But it's funny, before I met my partner in 2020, right when COVID hit, I had just hired another marketing company like 2 weeks before I met him, and I had like 72 hours to cancel it. And I already, like, after I signed up with them, I felt bad. And I called like the next day and I was like, hey, look, I was like, I can't do this. I don't feel comfortable with it. And they're, trying to talk me out of it. It wasn't that they did me wrong. I didn't have the right feeling about it.
And if you
You know
don't
what I
feel
mean?
good about something, you don't feel good about something, point blank.
Right. Plus, they weren't local. Everything was on the phone.
Gotcha.
So, I canceled that. Then COVID hit like the next day or something, I remember. And that's when when I got back from COVID. I
Hmm.
remember not having COVID, but from this trip that I was on, when I
Yeah.
found out that COVID hit, that's when I had the appointment planned with my now partner. And so basically, our first agreement was that he was just going to do work for me for a small retainer and a percentage of revenue. And then, as just Daniels was just skyrocketing, like every day it was more, 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 more. It was like, all right, I'm to the point where I need a partner now. I need somebody to manage this business for me. And that was our agreement. I didn't want to be the CEO. So I'm not the CEO. I'm actually just the owner, founder, and I have a whole executive team that manages the business.
That's good. I thought it was the opposite of that. So let me ask you this. Do you feel as a owner and founder that it sometimes makes the business run better when you're not CEO and stuff like that? Do you find it for your personal experiences?
I can just tell you from my experiences
Yeah.
of, when I go to the gym or whatever, and, through my whole journey, all I listen to is like other people's experiences, motivational speakers, and this and that and the other. A lot of people will say about me, the good thing about myself is that I realize what I'm good at. And running the
Mm,
business was not one. So when we literally made our partnership, I was like, you understand, I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want to run this business. I knew what I was good at, and that's making the videos, being the spokesman, talking about the product. So that was yeah, and from my personal experience, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I made all the right decisions. We wouldn't be nationwide if I hadn't been making the right decisions. Now, when I say that, I'm still totally involved with the decision making. I'm just not in the day to day operations
gotcha.
of running the business. Like, when we have our once a month, or, if we're talking about like a new product launch and stuff like that, I'm always involved. I'm always in the office.
Yeah.
I'm just not I'm not involved in the directional, like, hey, you do this, hey, you do this. Like, that's what your
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
executives
Yeah.
do. They're making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. I don't do any of that.
Right. Right. That allows you to do what you're more, not saying you're not passionate about it. Obviously, you are, but it allows you to do what you, like you was just saying a few moments ago. All right. I'm good at this shit. Let
Yeah.
me handle this side of things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At what point in this process of developing your own company did you get your first feeling of overwhelmingness, or like being, I wouldn't say overly proud of yourself, but just like, holy shit, it's really going to be like this?
That was when COVID was happening. And the hardest I ever worked in my life. I remember COVID, the announcement was like on March 8th or March 9th. and when basically like everything like shut down. And so when I came home, my first viral video was like March 18th. And that's when the sales went from $200 to $600. Then the next day was $800, then 1,000. So by the time we got to April, I'm doing like 2,000, 3,000 bucks a day.
That's a major jump.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to do 200 bucks a day just to survive. Like, I don't know how, nobody knew how long COVID's going to last. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to do 200 bucks a day just to survive this period of me not being able to go to shows. And I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to go do shows again. So my goal was 200 a day. Well, that first viral video on like March 18th was like, all right, I need to keep making videos like that, like keep creating this controversy. But I had stirred up a crowd, like all these comments were coming in and they started out negative, right? They were like, oh, what's this Dano's crap? This ain't, Old Bay's better than Dano's. And I was just like, you don't know T Dano. You don't know T Dano. Just telling everybody you don't know T Dano. And as everybody started to get those orders a week and 2 weeks later, all those comments started to roll in on my favor. They weren't against me. It was more people
Yeah.
like, no, I bought it. I tried it. It really is damn good. Like he says Dano might, like it is Dano might. So the what were we talking about? The point
Where
where
you realize it was like, holy shit, it's really going to happen.
yeah, so it was probably me and my partner didn't partner till May 1st. But
And
we
this is in
started to merge
2020, right?
2020, yeah. So it
Okay.
was, mid-March is when things started to go like this. And then you got April in there where we had our little agreement, but all like of April, like we're kind of like negotiating back and forth because I'm getting ready to give up a big chunk of my business to help grow it. So I want to make sure I'm making the right decisions, right agreements. And so as we're going through all this, sales are still skyrocketing, right? So during this time, I did everything out of my house. I did all the packaging, putting in the box, putting in the Packer
Oh,
peanuts.
shit. Okay.
So everything was in my house. So literally, like I live in an 1,800 square foot house, and 1,000 of it is my kitchen and my workspace where I do all the Dano stuff. Like my half of my house used to be a Dano's warehouse. So uh during that span of mid March to about mid May, for about 2 months, I always had like a couple buddies at my house packing things because I didn't have a fulfillment center. I just made this new partnership. So we had all these orders, like we're talking like sometimes 1,000 orders in a day, and we got to fill that and get it out the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For like Amazon, you have to do it in a certain amount of days, or Amazon will cut you off, won't let you sell. So like I had to get stuff out. And here I am, I don't have all the new technology. I'm not a technology guy. That's why I don't manage the business. I hate even functioning a computer. Like I couldn't even get on the Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
So literally I was probably working 16-hour days for about 2 months straight, like straight, because the orders didn't stop and I couldn't, and there was nobody to help me other than like a couple friends that I paid hourly to come help me just package this stuff. So until we made the partnership and got this little warehouse to start doing fulfillment for us, I was that guy, and it was the busiest point of my life to where it was like, all right, I remember the first flea market I did January or June, and it was July 2017. It was a 4-day event, and I sold like 4,000 bucks. And I remember calling my dad and telling my dad, like, I'm never going to work for anybody the rest of my life, right? Because I saw that people like this product.
You knew
All I
what it
need,
was. Yeah.
right? All I need to do is find more flea markets, and people love it. So I can survive off doing $4,000 or $5,000 a week, and I can keep this business rolling and take a little bit off top. I call it robbing Peter to pay Paul. Get your bills paid, but when I gotta pay things that I need, I just take it. You know what I mean? I didn't run the business properly. So, anyways, that's when I knew that's when I knew I really had something. When I did that first flea market, and I'm like, all right, I can survive off this. Flash forward, that 2 months of 2020 was like, all right, all my visions, all my like everything that like I set forth and like manifested, like this is reality. Like I remember telling my dad, like, and my mom, and I'm like, I'm doing $100 a day online. This was like 2017, 2018. And I was like, could you imagine if I could just do like $10,000 a day online? Like that would be 300 and or however that'd be $3.7 million or whatever. Just dreaming like that. And then like it happened. You know what I mean? I had a $10,000 day and it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Back to what you were. Go ahead. I'm not on. I thought you were done.
I was gonna say, well, what we did as a company though, and what I
Yeah.
did is when I say that like I made a lot of the right business decisions, is I never put money in my pocket. Like there, here we are doing $10,000 a day and even 20 and $30,000 a day sometimes. And I still made $50,000 a year for 2 years while we were doing that. Like I never took any money out. I always kept putting it back in the business. And, we sponsored NASCAR and we were doing things just making us look bigger than we were. But we were growing. But, it was about just I had a vision and my partner shared that vision. And it was like, let's not take any money out. Cause a lot of business owners, once you see success like that, you're going to start padding your pocket. I never did that. I still haven't received one single bonus check from Dano's, believe it or not, but I'm getting ready to get one soon, I hope.
Trust me, that I'm
So,
sure it'll be worth the wait.
right. I hope. So,
Right.
but that's just, I mean, I think a lot of times people might think that, Dano's was successful like overnight. There's a lot of grind to it, man. A lot of grind.
Yeah. Before I get to what I was going to say, I'll relate to you how I can relate to that. What helps me in my journey over the little over 5 years lets me know I'm doing something right. I'm talking to individuals like yourself, talking to Vince Morrow. I'm talking to Johnny Drinks, the bourbon guy, about doing one with him. These people and yourself can easily fucking tell me no. I'm just a guy from Shively that's pursuing a dream, chasing something. And these little small victories like this conversation and the other ones I'm getting ready to do, let me know I'm doing something right. So I'm at a point with it where I can't fucking stop. It's obvious I got something brewing or I'm doing something right. So I live by the mantra, it's no longer if, but when. Get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I know you can relate to something like that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing you said is, it's your persistence, man. And that's what when I looked at my phone and you texted me this morning, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, every time
This
he's texted
motherfucker
me,
ain't stopping.
but I'm like, every time he's texted me in the past, like it's like I'm super busy or something. And I'm like, he texts me at the right time. And I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, that's where persistence pays off. Like he caught me at the right time. Like I don't really have nothing going on. I'm sitting here looking at my phone. And it was like, yeah, I'll do this. Like, and it's respect. It's like, man, I met this guy at a Louisville, Indiana basketball game or
The
football game.
football
You
game,
run,
yeah, in
yeah,
August.
you run up, you take a selfie with me, and I'm like, here, give me. I gave you my number, and I was like, hit me up. And so, it's much respect, man.
I appreciate that. I'm also got one working with Vinny Rocco played Gilly on Mine's MC. I've been constantly communicating with him about trying to get things worked out to do one with him too.
Nice.
Back to what you were saying at the beginning. 9 out of 10 times, the black sheep of the family usually the most successful at the end of the day. So, hey, I wear that with pride. I love being the black sheep. I like being that
Nice.
crazy person because nine out of
Nice.
10 times, I'm sure you can relate to it too. They're going to come to you for advice at the end of the day. Man, what's one of the hardest things you've ever had to overcome in your life, man?
Hardest things I had to overcome. Wow. It was not being able to be the high school quarterback. So I went to Trinity High School. My
I went to
brothers
the
and
sales.
nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So my brothers, they didn't get to go to Trinity. They went to South Odom and Odom County, and then they were years older than me. So when they graduated, my parents actually had enough money to send me to private school. So I went to St. Albert for seventh and eighth grade, and I started both ways on all teams that I ever played. And went to Trinity, started both ways. Freshman year was the only kid on the team that played both ways, tight end and safety, but they didn't let me play quarterback. And sophomore year, I started JV over two juniors as a sophomore. And then junior year, they put me at third string defensive tackle weighing 190 pounds. And it's like, they don't like me. They knew I did, I was a smoker and all that stuff. So, I was a lot like, didn't obey all the rules type kid. And a lot of it was I was just upset that they wouldn't let me play quarterback. I'm like, I could throw a ball 60 yards on a dime. I could run out, jump up in the air and throw the ball 60 yards. But they never wanted to see me throw the ball, right? Well, they ran a veer anyway, so I shouldn't have been that upset. But but anyways, I carried a chip on my shoulder about a long time because I ended up quitting my junior year. I didn't never even play a game in junior year because I was like, I'm not a defensive tackle. This isn't going the way I want to. I'm like, I quit. My dad's like, well, if that's what you want to do, if that's really what you want to do, I'm not going to force you to do it. And so, it was a chip on my shoulder for a long, long time, long time. And then so I didn't even like try to go to college or anything like that. I barely graduated high school. And I was going to be a professional pool player. And so this is all going to lead up to something. And I was going to be a professional pool player. And I played my first professional tournament and played two of the top players in the world and almost beat the number two bank player in the world. Should have beat them.
No
And then,
shit. Awesome.
yeah. And then the following week, I get in a head on collision. And the only thing that happens is my hand hit the dashboard and this finger was split out like this. Well, it was my bridge hand. So I couldn't make my bridge to hold pool stick anymore. So it was like a message from God saying, like, you're not going this path. Right. So then I tried school and I went to school with my buddies. And that's where I came up with Dano's, the recipe, but I never called it Dano's. It was just the chicken recipe I knew. Right.
Yeah.
So I was on the dean's list for a couple years and dropped out because I wanted to come home and chase money and chase being a insurance salesman because that's what my brother was doing. He was super successful at it. He actually started his own brokerage and everything later on down the road. But so I was like, well, why do I want to go to 6 more years of college when I can go back and start my career now? Right? What's the point? Because I was so far behind from like not paying attention in high school, like
Yeah.
just barely graduating. So I had to do all the makeup stuff. But so, anyways, that didn't work. And then I ended up doing an industrial electronics job, which was awesome. But when that fell through, that's when I was like, man, I just want to go be a bartender. I know they make, almost $100,000 a year. You don't have to answer to nobody other than your boss. It's the easiest sales job in the world because everybody's buying.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
right. So I was like, I want to do that. So after doing it, like I said, 3 years in, I was like, what am I going to do? This is when I'm like, man, I was meant to do so much more. I wanted to be Brett Favre. I want, it's like clearly I had the talent. I was the only kid out of 70 players to start both ways on the freshman team, right? So it's like clearly I had some talent, but so it always was a chip on my shoulder. Well,
Yeah.
when I had the idea, my aha moment to start Danos, this is cool. I took a little notepad, little post-it notes, and I wrote on like 30 of them and stuck them all around my house. So where everywhere I went, I was going to see these little post-it notes, and they said, "I'm QB," because nobody could take that away from me. I was starting my own business. It wasn't a coach saying you're not good enough to be QB.
Yeah.
They all said, "I'm QB," and I had them on every mirror, on the ceiling, in the shower, like everywhere. So just that's the biggest obstacle I had to overcome in my life was this chip on my shoulder about someone not giving me the opportunity to be quarterback. And, it messed with me and it kept me down. It always made me angry that I never got my shot. I know there's tons of people out there like that through like high school sports that think that
Yeah.
they had it or whatnot. And, now, and I'm also a realist. Now that I look around and I'm like, man, I had some little squirrely legs. Those weren't going to work in the NFL, right? Like maybe I didn't have the talent.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just in my mind, but I never got to live it. I never got to try. And so that was a chip on my shoulder for a long time. But that if it wasn't for that experience and that like denial of having that opportunity, like Dano's probably wouldn't exist. You know what I mean?
Now, when I ask you this, I want to pre-say something. Not saying your parents were never not proud of you, ever, but when you realize, like, there comes a moment when you realize how successful you're going to be in life with something, no matter what it is. When you realize, like, how did it make you feel to make your parents proud with your company?
I mean, it feels great. I mean, it's
Hell yeah!
I got two older brothers, two older stepbrothers, and three older stepsisters, and
Dang, Christmas is fun.
yeah, there's like four different Christmases. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It feels good, man. I know my parents are super proud of me because it's like now I'm like I don't know what you call it. I'm a local celebrity, that's for sure. Used to be 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. Now it's like everywhere I go, I'm recognized. So, and everybody wants to talk to him about it, like, oh, that's so awesome what your son's done. And, you know, it's not just about building the brand, but it's, it affects so many people's lives in so many
Yep,
different ways. We're almost 50 employees now at Dano's, and that
that's
affects
good.
more. Yeah, it's awesome. And that affects more than just 50 families. It is the trickle effect. You know what I mean? It's more widespread than just the people that work there. It's cool, man. It's pretty cool.
All right, I got a few more questions before we end this good conversation. What advice could you give to an entrepreneur out there, or anybody, whether it's a different, business or whatever? What advice could and would you give to somebody starting something?
First thing is the reason why we're here right now, persistence. Once you know
True.
what you got to do, like,
You ain't lying. I take that
right?
as a compliment. I tell people all
Hell
the time
yeah.
before you go any further, I say, man, I'm like that annoying fucking girlfriend. I don't stop. I annoy you in a pleasant, respectful way.
There you go. It's persistence, man. So persistence is one, but the number one thing that I tell people, because you just heard my whole story that I got my high school quarterback dreams ripped away from me,
Yeah.
supposedly. Uh Barely graduated high school, dropped out of college, but I was on the dean's list. I just wanted to go chase a career, but it's learning how to be resourceful.
Mm.
I am not the smartest dude in the world. I am street smart, super street smart. I know how to hustle, but I actually did it for a little while, pool hustling. But learning how to be resourceful and figure things out. Because if I did it, I swear anybody can do it, man. Because it's like learning how to package this product. Guess what? It took me like 2 years, but I figured it out. I learned how to ask Google. Google can answer any question you'll ever have. So just
Yeah.
learn how to, I mean, we have it so easy now compared to where it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago. Like just ask Google. It will help you. It will help tell you how to start a business, how to do packaging. You'll get all the information you need right there on
Yeah.
the internet. All you gotta do is ask it.
Definitely. Definitely.
So
When
resourcefulness,
Dan,
man, figuring things out.
definitely, I've learning that myself too. It's like, okay, I think my biggest issue, and I'm sure you can probably kind of relate to this when you were in your earlier stages, I'm just too damn prideful. I don't like asking for help. I have a hard time of asking for help because I want to be able to go somewhere and be looked at like, damn, that motherfucker did it on his own. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a second cousin of mine was on Cougar Town for 7 years, been done a shit ton of movies, been a celebrity letter a bunch at UK. His dad was Congressman of the United States for 12 straight years. I've I don't even want to ask him. Even though I know I can, I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to get in a room and somebody tell me, "Oh shit, Josh Hopkins is your cousin." I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Damn, I didn't know." That's the whole point. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Man, so I find myself going through stuff like that. Um, how does Dan want
Well,
to be
there's
remembered as a person? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, no, no.
no,
Go
I was
ahead. Go
gonna
ahead.
say there's one other thing that I think that I'm really good at, and that's listening to other people.
Hmm.
I
Yes.
know a lot of entrepreneurs, somebody starting a business and whatnot. Like I know plenty of other people starting businesses, and I've given them recommendations before, and like they don't listen. You know what I mean? They just do what they do, and it's like one of the reasons why I'm successful is because I listen to other people. I don't have too much ego in there. I know what needs to be done, but like I've always listened. And I've never been afraid to
Yeah.
give things away. I gave more seasoning away than you can imagine in 2000, like 17 and 18. There'd be people trying my product at the flea market, and of course, I gotta sell product to keep afloat. And somebody would just like love the product and try it, and like they didn't want to spend $6 or whatever it was on a bottle, and I'd be like, you know what? Here, take this. You know why? Because I know one day they're gonna come back because they're gonna love that.
Yeah.
So like
Definitely.
I guess what I was just saying though in the beginning there is listen to other people. Be resourceful, be persistent, listen to other people cuz here's another thing. People have their own stories to tell. It's not always about, everybody's got their own story to tell. Listen
Yep.
to people. People will tell you what they want if you just listen.
Definitely. That's another thing that helps me with doing my interviews and asking questions. I don't I don't prepare shit. All this is
Right.
organic as fuck. I don't
Nice.
write down fucking nothing. I learned sometimes the worst thing that you can do is over prepare. You get what I'm saying? So like I think in my mind, like I already know a couple questions I'm gonna ask Dan or ask Vince.
Yeah.
Those first two questions, I use my big ass ears God gave me, and like you said, part of my French, I fucking listen because
Right.
when you listen to an answer, it allows you to ask another question. That's what I've done
Yeah.
this whole time.
Yeah.
Um, how does Dan want to be remembered as a person?
Man, the biggest thing to me and something I've been working on lately and even going through some like professional coaching with it and whatnot is being how can I inspire other people? Just like anybody that listens to this
Okay,
podcast. Anybody that listens to this podcast, if I can inspire one person to go out there and start a business, I mean that's doing something. And so yeah, man, I just want to be remembered as somebody that inspired people that, hey, here's a dude that barely graduated high school, what tried college, dropped out, school wasn't for him, but I'm resourceful. I knew how to figure things out. I made it happen. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So, like, leaving that inspiration behind that, I developed this national brand that hopefully lives on forever. Hopefully, when we're all dead and gone 150 years down the road, there's still some flavor out there called Danos. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And not only, and then there's a story. When I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, we went to the Hershey factory and the Hershey Museum, and I got to see William Hershey, I think was his name, and like the whole like history and all that stuff. And it's like that'd be pretty cool if like that was me one day. I just started a seasoning company and I was a bartender with $8,000 in a dream. You know what I mean?
definitely. Speaking of dreams, like whenever I first started this over 5 years ago, dude, all I had was a fucking Moto G3 or a Moto G4 Android phone. I ain't have shit. I'm talking nothing. It's slowly but surely, it's going to take me longer than I would want, obviously. Most of the times, one thing I've learned in my journey, and I'm sure you have too, and you continue to learn it every day, is most of the time, things that are worth it take time.
Yeah.
If if you didn't have the patience, we wouldn't be having this conversation right here. You wouldn't have a national brand. Like a lot of times, people can be successful. They just fucking choose to quit and give up.
Yeah.
A lot of people look for
Or
instant gratification.
yeah. And another thing is, everybody's got circumstances,
Yep,
but everybody's also got opportunities. And not everybody's
exactly.
opportunity is always the same, but it's what you do with those opportunities, whether it's little opportunities, big opportunities, opportunities you don't realize they're actually there. You know what I mean? So I hear a lot of complaining sometimes in the world, but like, man, things aren't that bad. You gotta look at the positives, not the negatives. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I do all the audio editing myself, video editing. I'm also a former licensed barber. I got a barber shop in my basement. I cut anywhere
Nice.
from 11 to 20 people every 4 to 6 weeks. I work a job 45, 50 hours a week. Husband, father, and I do this. And I'm sure you can relate to this. At the end of the day, you make time what you want to make time for. You have the time. You're just choosing not to make the time. Did you ever find yourself being unsure if you had the time and just realizing, man, fuck it, I gotta go. I just got to do
Yes.
it.
I mean, well, dude, with the Danos, like when I talk about like having to pick myself up and drag myself to one of these shows, I remember,
Yeah,
towards the later part of me doing them in like 19 or 2019, there's like one in West Virginia, and it's like, I gotta be there and be set up by 6 o'clock on Thursday. And here I am, it's like midnight on Wednesday, and I haven't packed anything yet. And I'm like, how am I gonna do this?
yeah,
Like, how am I gonna do it? Like, I don't do I go to bed now? Do I pack now? You know what I mean? What do I do? So it's just pushing yourself sometimes. Like, there was so many times, man, where I was just like, I'm worn out, I'm beat down, but like I had to remind myself of like my vision and like what I set out to do. And so I would just, I never had anybody there pushing me. I've told my girlfriend sometimes that like, now I cannot look at my phone for 2 hours and then go look at it and I got 50 text messages. Is where, go back 6, 7 years ago when I was on my own, just doing my own thing, trying to make this business work. I could go a whole week without getting one text from somebody. You know what I
yep,
mean? Like nobody cares. Like I still stayed in touch with like my family and stuff, my mom and dad, but we've never had the relationship to where we talk every day. It's like every few days or maybe once a week, sometimes maybe once every 2, 3 weeks. So I just remember times where I was single, I was on my own. I had this vision of growing this business. And there's a lot of times that maybe I couldn't have done the business had I not been single and on my own and willing to
right,
like just commit to like what I'm trying to do. Like I was married to my business. And so just, being that particular set of equation that was my life is part of the reason maybe why I'm successful because I didn't have distractions. It was like, all right, this is what you're meant to do here. You know what I
right.
mean?
I got two more questions. One,
Sure.
a little more relaxed question. Who's the most famous person you've ever met in your journey as your business continues to grow?
Right off the bat, Eric Wood jumps out to me. I met Josh Allen.
Eric Wood's a
Eric
good
Wood.
dude. I like Eric. Eric's
Yeah.
cool, man.
He was my first investor in my business. So he was the
Awesome.
first one.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool.
He was the first one to here's some money to grow this thing. So much respect for Eric. I stay in touch with him. He's the one that introduced me to Josh Allen. So I would say that Josh Allen is the most uh, famous person I've ever met.
That's not a bad one to answer.
And the last time I saw him, because I met him like 2 years ago, and it was very brief. Just hey, I'm Dano, whatever, make seasonings. That was it. And then last year when I met him, I talked to him for like 45 seconds. He knew who I was. He's like, "Oh, how's your seasoning business going?" And he's like, "I've seen him before." He acknowledged
Yeah.
it like he's seen him. So I'm like, "That's cool." And then I had a little bet on the game the day before the Bills game, and it was going to pay me like $4,000 or something. It was one of those parlays where it's like it was like $50 for like Stephon Diggs to get over 100 yards, this person to catch a touchdown, this and this and this and this, and all this stuff had to happen. And all I needed was like 10 more yards out of Stephon Diggs. And I was like, man, I won $5,000 if you, hit Stephon Diggs for 10 more yards. He thought that was funny. He's like, I'll get him next week. But then
Hell
that was
yeah.
it. Conversation was over.
Oh yeah. Um, Last question. What would you be doing if this ended up not being successful or as successful as it is? Would you be pursuing something else, you think, or would you be still bartending?
I wouldn't be bartending, I don't think. Maybe I would. I mean, I was just, dude, man, I was so like sick and tired of it. Like, I just can't tell you like how like over it I was. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't think I'd still be bartending unless I own my own bar or something. But I don't know. Somebody told me that the other day. They said, what would you be, or what would you be doing, or what would you be personally if somebody just came down, took Danos, and like it went away and nobody knew what Danos was? I'm like, well, I'd be thinking or in the process of starting something, like, because I've always been that guy, man. I've always been this like big thinker, idea person, but all my ideas were always just so big, like need $1 million to like chase that down. I never had any money, so
All right. Last question. How important is mental health to you?
very important, man. uh you know Mental health, man. I mean, I can speak to that because if
Same
you're
here.
some if you're someone that lets other people's opinions get to you, well, don't start a seasoning business and go on social media. Because I mean, it. There was a time like I try to not even like read many comments at all anymore. I'll kind of like go into a video that we post and like read a couple,
Yeah.
like for just to kind of see what the vibe is. But like I don't like reading into them anymore. It's just I take the business so like serious because it is my baby and my
Hmm.
passion, and it's my flavor. And for every person that wants to be like negative or talk negative about it, I just want to prove 'em, like I want to go to their house and like cook for them. You know what I mean? To be like,
Yeah.
look, try this. Now, what do you think? You know,
Now,
so
mental health is definitely important, especially for men, because sometimes, I'm sure you can relate as a man yourself. Sometimes you aren't afforded as many opportunities as other individuals or whatever, like that, women, whoever, whatever, to talk about what you go through.
yeah. But I mean, lately, I've in the last 2 months, I've been back in the gym like 4 times a week, and there was a time period of like 3 years that I was non-existent. Worst shape of my life, and dealing with the comments and the negativity, and it's like, man, I need to make a change. So I've been going down this like personal health and wellness and like mental health like journey myself right now.
Dan, I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself, good bro, and I'll be reaching out to you here real soon, man.
Yeah, Corey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Take care, man.
All right, you too.